Good morning and thank you for watching my presentation. Today I will be presenting a stylistic analysis of author William S. Burroughs and his novel Naked Lunch. William S. Burroughs is a renowned author encapsulated as a beatnik generation icon of the 1950s, known for his visceral depictions of obscenity, vulgarity and addiction. This novel, published in 1956, follows an unstructured text delineated through anecdotal segments with skewed elements of connection. An abounding amount of this unstructured, guideless novel follows the narration of William Lee and his corporeal journey of drug use and philosophical examination throughout his surrealist travels. The narration is followed under the gaze of heroin, opioid, and morphine addiction. Naked Lunch is often categorized genreless due to its esoteric and inimitable nature, however is often placed in the category of speculative fiction due to its depiction of the paranormal and palpable expressions of the hallucinatory perspective of drug use. This presentation will analyze the process of an artistically incoherent unconscious text through extended metaphors, which are used by Burroughs as a stylistic technique. These textual techniques evoke a portrait of the novel's plot, expressing staunch and controversial commentary regarding liberation from governmental control under the gaze of paranoia and obscene deliriums. This unique social commentary, as well as criticism on cultural trends throughout Burroughs' time period, are explored vivaciously throughout the novel's chopped-up metaphorical tales. It is therefore seen that his extended metaphorical exacerbations of life bereavements, as well as his free-flowing, unconscious method of writing, are provided through the reader's journey throughout Naked Lunch. Naked Lunch is a text which ignored the traditional processes of literature. The novel disregards basic syntax, creating a novel which is luminously unique in its deconstructive nature. Some elements remain uninterpretable or easily misunderstood by an audience which does not respect the process of automatism, in part due to being written under drug-induced states. Burroughs provides references which can occasionally seem incoherent. Certain phrases, grammar structures, and word choices show that his readership would pertain to individuals on the fringes of society's readership base, or radically minded individuals. The author manages to separate the reader from reality, allowing the audience to engage in a surrealist, deeply vivid sensory experience of life under the influence of substances. The role of metaphor in Naked Lunch is seen prominently in the descriptive devices used, seen as a method that represents the multifaceted characters in shocking, dubiously obscene ways. It can be argued that a pattern prominent throughout Naked Lunch is the fact that there are no patterns. Identities of the protagonist shift frequently, the setting changes shape in numerous different sensory facets, as well as the descriptive techniques consistently changing shape. It can be said, however, that Burroughs maintains a sense of normalcy in the novel. A key motto expressed by character William Lee is "exterminate all rational thought," denoting the sensation of guidelessness throughout the text. The author does recycle elements of each chapter, including certain key characters, bringing them forward into the next routine before Burroughs commits a characteristic inconsistency, whereby they are never mentioned again. This process the author used conveys a necessity for the audience in understanding some form of pattern to the novel. The use of certain characters overpowering the dialogue and capturing a larger element of the setting than deemed necessary is used to further express these extended metaphors Burroughs intended to convey. It can be deduced that the overarching metaphor of Naked Lunch, as a whole, is one of the deep intrinsic use of control and the subduing of power in the experience of an individual. The lack of power scattered throughout the narration is seen through consistently referring to drugs as junk. A metaphorical link can be formed between the ideal of complete dependence on drug use with mainstream society's addictive dependence on sex, media, social interaction, religion, and political establishments. Through the erratic portraiture of metaphorical content, derived throughout intense description, Burroughs manages to depict this metaphor in numerous methods with his chopped-up textual style. A key quote which evidences this early into Naked Lunch is this: "Naked Mr. America, burning frantic with self-bone love, screams out, my arsehole confounds the Louvre. I fart ambrosia and shit pure gold turds. My expletive spurts soft diamonds in the morning sunlight." This quote reinforced the metaphorical nature of the novel through Burroughs' characteristic rant style of communication. While on a journey for William Lee to refuel his addiction, the text is often seen to be interrupted so that the protagonist can focus intently on the ideals of societal imprisonment and the power structures of American society. This is easily linked to Burroughs' intended overarching metaphor in cutting through the illusion of power in societal structures. The line, "burning frantic with self-bone love," is another unique method of expressing the metaphor of control, showing the ostentatious nature of American ideals as burning frantic. This evidences the ferocity of this ideal. The confronting vulgarity of these descriptions express the lack of boundaries William S. Burroughs maintains in expressing this metaphor. By describing the nation as Mr. America, as well as including bodily functions and genitalia, provoke a visceral image of an overbearing male figure in its most diminished form. This quote is a key example of Burroughs blurring the line between reality and the narrator's drug-fueled delusions regarding power structures. It can be noted that certain phrases are included to disrupt the sequencing of events. Cut-up phrases, abundantly in elongated anecdotes, are precipitated throughout the novel whenever the content seems too linear. This is seen prominently in the aforementioned quote as it occurs during a relatively forthright chronicle within the chapter's events. This philosophical tangent is provided by William Lee in the midst of normalcy to disrupt any linear element of text. This content is used to shock audiences with the vulgar language features allowing ideologies to be expressed more fervently. To engage fully with the novel, the reader is to accept that there are many elements of the text which do not make cognizant sense. It is because of this that Burroughs can relate the process of automatism to his writing process. He describes writing Naked Lunch as possessing a hostile entity, as well as automatic writing gone horribly wrong. Burroughs uses a flowing consciousness to elucidate powerful metaphors relating to his addiction and powerlessness. This automatic writing is blended with the power of metaphor to elucidate a vivid portraiture of life under addiction. An example of this is shown in the quote. "I was standing outside myself trying to stop those hangings with ghost fingers. I am a ghost wanting what every ghost wants, a body. After the long time moving through odorless alleys of space where no life is, only the colorless smell of death. Nobody can breathe and smell it through pink convolutions of gristle laced with crystal snot, time shit, and black blood filters of flesh." By capitalizing long time, deductions can be found which evidence that Burroughs does not follow any rules of grammar, structure, or traditional literature devices. This is an example of his characteristic flowing stream of cognizance, both intelligible and unintelligible in certain key areas. The line, "I am a ghost wanting what every ghost wants, a body," allows the process of disassociation with a sense of self to take charge of his writing. His depiction of life under drug addiction is described as standing outside myself, showing that this was written from an ungrounded, minutely physical place in his mind. The incorrect capitalization of the word long time, as well as the fact that each paragraph is separated through ellipsis points instead of periods, indicate evidence that Burroughs does not follow the rules of grammar, structure, or traditional literature devices. This ideal is encapsulated into metaphorical elements of the novel, most notably in the quote, There is a Senate and a Congress who carry on endless sessions discussing garbage disposal and outhouse inspection, the only two questions over which they have jurisdiction. Democracy is cancerous, and bureaus are its cancer. Bureaus cannot live without a host, being true parasitic organisms. To describe democracy in such vulgar terms as a disease once again shows the level of human depravity Burroughs is willing to stoop to as an author. Description of a bureau as a parasitic organism forms a tie and solidifies this overarching metaphor to his numerous depictions of junk as equally parasitic. This ideal is brought further into a spiritual aspect. Burroughs continually pokes fun, or at times viscerally berates, organized religion. The extension of this metaphor towards religion, characteristically vulgar setting, Burroughs berates with the line, "Muhammad, are you kidding? He was dreamed up by the Mecca Chamber of Commerce, an Egyptian ad man on the skids from the source, write the continuity." This firms his belief in which religion is used as a monetary control system, essentially describing it as an advertisement, dreamed up by the Mecca Chamber of Commerce and an Egyptian ad man. Write the continuity is used as if to prophesize the elongation of the process of religious values throughout the future of society. By surreptitiously describing the future of religion, he has painted an ideal of freedom for future generations having the power to write the continuity of where spiritual beliefs and practices lie in the future. The role of drug addiction is once again tied to the addiction of powerlessness. Describing Prophet Muhammad as a man on the skids from the source show the influence of his experience in describing all in equilibrium as a junkie. This is another example of Burroughs' blatant disregard for traditional literature structures, such as grammar, punctuation, or sentence structure. Numerous similarities can be found between the two texts. Both use the power of a dark, malignant method of imagery to deliver the metaphor to the audience memorably. The technique of illusion is used, both in the draft and in Burroughs' work, in the interest of freshly maintaining the metaphor and elongating it, being able to be applied into numerous different variations of text. Describing fire as a demon of heat alludes to Burroughs' intense use of paranormal creatures in relation to the feeling of desperation, addiction, and utter hopelessness. Both narratives use visceral descriptions to hone in the overall purpose of the metaphor. As well as this, some form of unconscious writing was used for the draft. However, the stylistics of grammar, punctuation, and correct literary devices was maintained throughout the piece. This technique serves as a refreshing change to the staunch structured values of mainstream writing. By understanding and interpreting the unique effectiveness of this text's expression, writers are able to include elements of deep intrinsic metaphorical structure to their work. After engaging with the vulgarity and unparalleled obscenity in Naked Lunch, an author now likely has the ability to consciously spread their ideology without regard to the response, however with a writing process that is more commensurate to their own ideals rather than for the purpose of pleasing the reader. Writers will also be able to use the process of automatic writing to convey their ideas through esoteric metaphors, regardless of literary structures such as syntax, grammar, and punctuation. This will likely result in an extremely unique text, refreshingly void of any reservations. Using an overarching metaphor throughout a novel is now a technique that can be transferred from Burroughs to author due to the prominence of this technique throughout Naked Lunch. Naked Lunch by William S. Burroughs provides the writer as well as the reader with an undoubtedly unique perspective on the process of metaphor writing. The deep engagement with this audience through the extension of intense and often horrific textual vulgarity throughout these metaphors shows a method of writing which is unlike any other. The analysis of Burroughs' metaphorical concepts has the ability to shape the reader in profound depth. The chopped-up text, void of basic language features, shows the ability for Burroughs to paint a portrait of addiction, powerlessness and desperation through outlandish, multifaceted metaphorical lenses. The stylistic techniques analysed have had an immense amount of power in influencing writers, leaving the audience with a gripping narrative of confusion, desperation, and paranoia. Thank you for listening.